Hey Jesse, thanks for coming down to Christchurch to have a chat to us about aerospace. It's always nice to have someone young and keen to talk to about this.
Awesome.
So what is it that got you interested in aerospace?
Well, as I said before, I've always been interested in engineering. Like when I was young, I would make little machines out of those massive Lego blocks. They
Yep.
would kind of like move and stuff. And then I visited JPL while I lived in America for a year, and I saw them building rovers and satellites, and I just got really interested in aerospace.
Mm-hmm.
I did a bit more research, and I found out what it really was, and I got super interested in it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, JPL's a cool place.
Yeah, Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Yeah. When were you in America?
Well, that was a few years back. I think it was 2017.
Oh yeah, that's the
The-
year I left America.
It was the year the election was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A good time to leave America. No, so you're at school at the moment?
Yeah.
What year?
I'm year 8. So
Year 8.
high school next year.
High school. You get to do a bit more science and stuff at high school.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Is there a particular kind of engineering you're interested in doing?
Well, aerospace for one, and I always wanted to do mechanical or electrical engineering. And when I was young, I wanted to do robotic engineering or biomedical engineering.
Yep.
But yeah, now I've gotten pretty interested in aerospace. But I've always wanted to be an engineer.
Nice. It's good to have that sort of direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And aerospace is a fun place to be. Hence why I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah. So when and why did you decide to get into the aerospace industry?
So growing up, my father was a pilot. He worked for Air New Zealand. And so I was around planes a lot growing up. Always really liked planes. But didn't like the fact that my dad was gone all the time. You know, so I was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be a pilot, but I want to work with planes. And then so that's sort of what got me interested in aerospace. And then, you know, I was 12, 13 and dug way too deep into the planes
Yeah.
side of things, as you do. But yeah, that's really what got me interested in aerospace. Yeah, and the engineering side of things. And like yourself, I spent a lot of time as a kid building Lego and making things that weren't on the box
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff, and building things. And yeah, so I was interested in engineering from a pretty young age, and then aerospace in particular probably comes from my father's side of things.
Oh, cool. If you go back in time to, as you said, your 12-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
Somewhat keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think that what I was doing then worked pretty well. I think that particularly from high school, I put a lot more effort into the sort of like woodwork, that kind of stuff at high school than a lot of my peers did. So I got all the maths and science education that everyone else I finished high school with and who wanted to do engineering did. But I spent a lot more time in the workshop at high school than many other people did, and I think that gave me a lot of sort of practical experience that's carried on through. So I think that that's something I second guessed myself doing at high school when everyone else was focusing on, well, I did the sciences too, but other subjects, I was like, no, I'm going to go into the workshop. You can't get excellence in those credits, and that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I think that I was doubting myself in that decision at the time. So I think my advice to my younger self would be, don't doubt that. I think that's a good decision.
Yeah. And some people say that we shouldn't spend money on aerospace when there are so many problems down on Earth. What do you think about this?
That's a hard question. I mean, the statement itself about there being a lot of problems down on Earth certainly has some validity to it.
Yeah.
I think that space is an incubator for a lot of technology that then does get applied on Earth. A lot of technology around communications and life support and electronics and reliability and all that kind of stuff only really gets investigated because you can't do space without it. And then a lot of the findings from that research then can come back to Earth and be applied like solar power is a really good example.
Yeah.
In space, you can't do it without solar power. And then the advancements in that technology that was enabled by space can then solve problems that are here on Earth.
Yeah.
Particularly from a technological point of view, I think that's true.
Yeah. What were the best and worst days of your career?
That's a hard question. I saw that on your list, and that made me think. Worst day of my career is easier. Let's start with that one. So in 2015, the company I've been interning at for the summer during my master's degree, we launched a satellite, and the rocket failed to make orbit, and so we lost our satellite into the Pacific Ocean. I'd say that's the worst day of my career. Second worst would be a very similar day involving a rocket, during my time at University of Canterbury, so there's somewhat of a theme there. Best day of my career would probably be getting into Stanford University. That was a really good day, and then starting my own company in New Zealand is probably the other day that would be in contention for that.
Yeah. And when people think of aerospace engineering, they often think of maths and physics, but what role do you think creativity has in it?
I think creativity plays a huge role. I like to think of myself as quite a creative person. I think particularly as an engineer, creativity can often differentiate you from some of your peers, and I think that particularly in a educational system that somewhat trains every person the same way, it's the creativity, not the maths and science skills, that differentiate one person from another. And that's where if you get a whole bunch of engineers trained at the same university, it's their creative side of things, which wasn't taught at the university, that is what brings diversity to that team, so you can come up with much better solutions to engineering problems if you have a creative outlook. And that's where having multiple people with their different creativities comes together to get a better result.
Awesome. And why do you think Christchurch or Canterbury is a good place for an aerospace hub?
I think it's a great place for an aerospace hub for a number of reasons. I think the fact that we have a very good engineering university here helps. You get access to a lot of really keen students, and the university is reasonably accessible to work with them while they are students, and then they graduate and then need a job, kind of thing. And also, there's a lot of room to grow in Christchurch. You leave Christchurch, you just get rolling farmland. I mean, I live 40 minutes from here, and most of that's driving in the country, farmland, so there's room to expand, there's room to put facilities in, all that kind of thing. I think Christchurch also has a good heritage with engineering, and there's a lot of manufacturing based in the city, and there's a lot of engineering companies that already exist here which could support an aerospace engineering industry, be they directly supporting or more sort of manufacturing peripheral support.
Yeah. And as the director of the Asteria engineering consultancy, what are the things that you do day to day?
So, other than boring business things, I do satellite design. I design primarily electrical hardware for small satellites. So there's an example of that. This ranges from power systems through to communication systems, flight computers, payload specific hardware, that kind of thing. So day to day, that's what I'm doing. That's what I was doing this morning. That's what I'll do when I go home again after this. I'm trying to diversify as Asteria a little bit at the moment, particularly to gain more business in the New Zealand market, because aerospace in New Zealand is still growing. So at the moment, a lot of my customers are overseas. So trying to work with New Zealand companies to do more like UAV work as opposed to just strictly satellites, because the satellite industry here is reasonably niche and small. So trying to branch out a little bit, and I'm willing to do more than just satellites in order to do that.
Awesome. What do you want to achieve in this role as director and personally over the rest of your career?
I think those are somewhat the same answer, and it's the same. It's pretty much the same answer that got me a Fulbright scholarship a few years back, and that is I want to help the New Zealand aerospace industry grow. One of the reasons I came back and started a consulting firm is that as a consultant I have the ability to help a number of different companies, and I think that gets me more breadth in the industry to help it grow. But I think New Zealand can do great things in aerospace, and I want to help make that happen.
Awesome. Thanks for talking.
No problem. Thanks for coming
Nice.
down.